I hear that.
I've got it all the way up right now.
We can hear you.
So we might be able to turn her down on our end. It's her.
Hello,
Okay.
Why, hello. Can you hear us?
I just turned it.
barely.
Well, you have to stick your ear close. Anyway, we're going to start our regular governing board meeting on Tuesday, April 28th of 2020 at 7:07. Roll call. All members are here. Ms. Frank is attending via the telephone. We're going to stand for the pledge and wait for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
I move to adopt the agenda.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Well, Ms. Frank, since you're lively, would you have a report that you want to share with us?
No report.
Okay. Miss Tweedy?
I don't have much of a report either. I did receive a question. I had people ask me how come we don't have the comments on the board meeting anymore? When we have the meeting, there was a chat box. And I guess the question was why we don't have that any longer, since we don't have public comments, and then they can't talk on that.
Yeah, we talked to our attorneys. Miss Moffat can fill us in here, but we are especially during the COVID. I actually have a statement here,
Yeah, I was going to say it's right here.
right here. So it's right there, the statement about the public comments. It's all written right there from our attorney Denise Lobrit.
No, there was a chat box.
Oh yeah,
on
we
the
got rid
live
of that,
stream.
a
How come
couple
we
years
don't?
ago?
Oh, I was told it just went down.
No, we've got a brand new system, updated our new system, and it was we took it off at that time. As long as you don't discriminate, you are legal. You don't have to have a public chat box where people can, like TV, they can comment, like Facebook Live. So we cut that a long time ago.
You're
It
talking
just
about the chat
recently
box
got
on the live
recognized.
stream?
So when the meetings used to stream, people could, like, if there were more than one people,
Debate.
they could talk
Yeah.
back and forth on
Yeah,
that.
we turned it off with our new update of our system.
Yes, they could, and they did.
Well, I didn't know a lot about it. I just got a question about it last night,
Yeah.
so I just thought I would bring it up.
Yeah, with a new update of our system, it got chopped. Different than this. This is the statement in relation to the pandemic.
And
Good question.
if there is somebody that had a public comment, they've been emailing them, and then Dr. Finch has been reading them. Mrs. Reed?
Let's see. I just want to take a second to recognize Sheila, who is so amazing. And last week was Administrative Professionals Day. And just thank you so much for everything you do to help keep us organized and keep us on track. And there's so much that goes into running the district and running the board. So I think that if there was a real boss in the district, I think that would be Sheila. But so thank you, and to all of our administrative professionals across the district. We know that you truly are the heart of your school campuses and your departments. So thank you for everything you do for us. Last week I got to do something really neat. We surprised the food service workers at Barry Goldwater High School. I think there were 6 schools that had food service workers there, and were able to take them boxed meals from Chick-fil-A. So that was really neat. So our kitchen director put those together, and just as an act of service to honor and appreciate them. And that was the day that we went and hit over the 200,000 mark for food. So just a huge shout out to them and everything that they're doing. And it's starting to get warm, and I know that that's just another element that makes their job a little bit more taxing. So I appreciate them. I love seeing all of the unique and creative ways that our parent organizations and principals are honoring their staff for Teacher Appreciation Week. So just a kudos and shout out to you guys for everything that you're doing. And then I had a couple of questions and requests. One, on our district website and our individual school websites, it's really difficult to find the current registration process for students who are moving into the district. Not all of the school websites have the correct link, and it's really hard to find. And so with the school offices being closed, I've had 2 families reach out to me this week asking me for the link. So I think that this is a great opportunity to be able to make that really flashy on the website so it's easy to find, so we aren't missing any students. And when school opens, we don't have any surprises of students just arriving on the doorstep because they didn't know how to pre-register. But the kindergarten registration is very apparent, but it's for all of those other kiddos. And then question for Ms. Moffitt for HR. Is it possible to get just a yearly report or trend data presented to us on the exit interviews for staff members who are leaving, and then also for transfer interviews? So to collect some data as to the reasons why staff are transferring to other schools, and then so we can just better understand the thought processes of some of our employees and staff members. I would really appreciate that. And then I have one other concern as far as just making sure for the emotional well-being of our staff members who have, or specifically teachers who have young students at home. I've heard in just some chatter from social media and things like that they're having a really hard time balancing their workload and ensuring that their own students, their own children in their home are being able to keep up with their expectations. So I think that we've done a really good job of addressing external parent concerns with, showing some grace and, you don't have to be on all of the Zoom calls and really do what you can. But I think our internal parents are still having that struggle as far as how do they have their professional day and what exactly are their professional expectations, and then how do they manage making sure their children are learning and they're being able to take care of them. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. O'Brien?
Thank you. And I'm going to say ditto to what Mrs. Reed said regarding Sheila Taylor. Thank you so much for how well you take care of all of us, and also to all the administrative assistants out in the district. I have been able to spend some time on webinars or Zoom meetings, as we all are, from West Ed, ASBA, Arizona Capital Times, and they have ranged on the CARES Act and what it entails, how we can spend it, to resources for special education, how to support parents. It's a wide variety. So I'd like to share some of those links with you, Dr. Finch, so that we can make them available to staff as you see fit. But there's a lot of good information, and rather than recreating a wheel that maybe is already started or already done, I think that would be helpful for folks. And just again, kudos to all of the staff and community and family, and for all that we're doing, all that you're doing out there. And so thank you.
Thank you. So that leaves me. Okay. So I do want to thank all of our employees, our parents, and community members, but most of all, our students have really been transformed, even though they don't know it. Some of them want to get on at 5:30. Some of them want to stay on all day, and some of them never want to see the screen. However, I think all the way in between, they're learning new ways, and I think that when we finally do get back to the physical classroom, that all of these changes and the flexibility that everyone has had to either adapt to, and there are people that love being flexible, it's just going to make for a better learning experience for everyone. So the patience and the perseverance and the kindness is great. We have a page, or there is a page, or maybe there's two on Facebook for all of the Deer Valley Unified School District senior parents to post pictures of their students, and then they're out there to be adopted. So there's a lot of special stuff that's going on, and we're innovative, right? So we'll get through this. And with that, I will give Dr. What's your name again?
Dr.
Finch. I
Finch,
haven't
like
seen you in a
bird.
while.
Yeah.
Dr. Finch, go ahead.
I think I'm going to use my portion of the show to do awards and recognitions. Monica's bequeathed me with the golden PowerPoint clicker.
Uh-oh.
So tonight we are holding our awards and recognition ceremony. And although, once again, our honorees aren't here in the room, we are celebrating them virtually now.
Are they watching?
And hopefully they're watching.
Yes.
Hopefully they got their check in the mail here pretty soon.
Okay.
And we're going to be promoting them, obviously, on social media. Certificates and logo pins will be mailed to their houses. So, see how this thing works. Doesn't trust me. Oh, where do you got to point this, Dave?
Oop,
This
goes
way?
that way.
That way?
That way.
That way. Or other way. Not logical. In 2005, DVUSD began purchasing student artwork for the purpose of establishing a permanent art collection. In 2020, I had the honor of selecting 5 pieces of art for the district art showcase that ran at the outlets at Anthem earlier this year. Hopefully, many of you got a chance to go check that out. The pieces will be put on display in the lobby outside of the governing board room, right out here for the 2021 school year, and then put on permanent display inside the district office. It's my pleasure to reveal the works of arts that were selected. Come on. You can do it. There it is. This is Henley Leach from Mountain Ridge. Her ceramic piece was called Stitched. Congratulations to Henley Leach and her art instructor, Carl Wolfong. Yes, that is unique. I kept coming back to it. After my 3rd pass, I said, I think we have a winner.
Was it the eyes or the lips?
It depends on your perspective. Come on, Dave, you're killing me. All right. Our next award goes to Laura Rodriguez Lopez from Barry Goldwater High School for her digital art entitled Telekinesis. Congratulations to Laura Rodriguez Lopez and her instructor, Christian Cochran. Isn't that a freaky one? I try to pick 5 different media. I try. Sometimes it doesn't work out. But next, from Deer Valley High School, the winning selection is the oil painting titled Luck by Evie Wen. Congratulations to Evie Wen and her instructor, Stephanie Bucher. That one's really impressive, too, close up. Remember, these are pictures of a picture.
That's a drawing. Oh, a picture.
This one here is from Sandra Day O'Connor High School. Alyssa Ortega's charcoal piece called Tiger. I'm a sucker for tigers. Last year I picked a tiger too. So if you want to win, pick a tiger. Draw me a good tiger. Congratulations to Alyssa Ortega and our art instructor, Dina Davis. And finally, did I go through it?
Get back to
Somebody
the
already got
cupcakes.
it. Somebody's clicking for me. Probably Sheila. Sheila runs the place. I just work here. And finally, from Boulder Creek High School, the oil painting titled Cupcakes. Can't go wrong there.
You
By
wanted
Sarah
to eat
Townsend. Congratulations to Sarah Townsend and instructor Jason Lohmeyer.
them. Oh, Meyer, you wanted to eat those cupcakes, I'm telling
Yeah,
you.
they are really good. And that's a great picture. Congratulations to all our students and their extraordinary pieces of art will now become a part of the DVUSD Permanent Art Collection. We look forward to enjoying their artwork for years to come. And they'll be getting a check in the mail. And so I also, too, want to spend a couple seconds thanking my team, my district office team, building administrators, teachers, and staff as they work together in this unique time. And it's really exciting to see the teamwork. That's what's paying off. We're paying off that camaraderie, that ability to work together. The whole PLC process was all a part of that beginning to get us to even work together more. And now in this environment, it's multiplied, and Deer Valley's really doing a nice job, and I'm really proud of the team. So, thanks.
Oh, so you're okay. Just checking. I didn't want to cut you off or anything because I don't do that stuff. Okay, so who's next?
COVID-19 update.
Yes.
Dr. Zerbach.
He was waiting for that.
I am waiting for that. Okay, so good evening, President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. It's my pleasure to present to you the third COVID-19 board update. Items to cover. The format will be similar to what we have done in the prior two sessions. So we will start with a few sunshine stories that will certainly put a smile on our faces. We will follow that with some updates from the various departments, preview this week and the following week, and then end like we always do with some time for question and answers. Okay, so our first sunshine story comes from Barry Goldwater High School. It is a great story from a parent who emailed this to the principal, and so I'm going to read this to you. So it says, my senior has moved to Arizona at the start of her 7th grade year, across the country, away from family and friends. She was always a good student, but watching her flourish as a bulldog has truly been inspiring as a parent. She is presenting her Senior Institute project virtually this morning, and I am in awe of her positive attitude through this national disaster. She was supposed to hold a dance camp at Norterra Canyon until she couldn't, so she put together a Zoom dance class and had people not just from Arizona, but Pennsylvania, Florida, Virginia, and Oregon. All I can say is wow. We appreciate every single staff member at Barry Goldwater High School that has guided her, supported her, and has truly loved her. She will be attending Barrett Honors College at Arizona State and is ending her high school career strong. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that Goldwater does. We appreciate you. There's a great story there highlighting what the Goldwater staff is doing.
And then I'm going to share a story from Desert Sage and teletherapy. And this is from a teacher at Desert Sage. Yesterday, I completed a teletherapy session with one of our pre-K students. The parent told me at the end of the session that she is very grateful for this opportunity, even though it is difficult. She said she has learned so much about how we manage her child's behavior and how to talk with her child from participating in the online circle time that it has improved their family life and impacted her child's development. She said they have learned how to teach him to complete tasks and activities effectively for learning and developing versus just doing them. I can tell you that as we watch this child on screen, he is growing and developing right before our eyes. It is awesome to see. Her words reminded me why we are doing this when I needed it the most. A Desert Sage teacher.
And our third sunshine story highlights the contributions that our specials teachers are making to the home learning environment. This one is an email that was to Coach Hughes at Sonoran Foothills. Coach Hughes, I just wanted to say how much I love the PE options. My student chose the Avengers workout, and my 5-year-old and I are joining her. We are laughing and feeling the burn. We are going to try the dice strength workout as well tomorrow. Thanks for putting this together. We are utilizing these as it heats up and becomes harder to be outside. Thank you so much, from the parent. So 3 stories highlighting some of the great things, again, that our staff is doing. The next slide is an incredible slide. It highlights some of our alumni from Deer Valley High School that are first responders and that are making contributions to our community against COVID-19. And so this slide truly, if this doesn't bring a smile to your face, seeing what folks are doing who are products of our community, then I don't know what will. And so just wanted to make sure that you saw this. Okay, as far as some of our department updates, some of these things will be similar to what you've heard before, so we'll just go quickly through these. As far as communication, we continue to provide our daily parent postings by 4 p.m. on the website and sometimes via email to our parents. We've also made some changes per the board's suggestion from our last board meeting on the websites as far as the home learning schedules. We also have resumed our meetings with the principals of some of the schools that are going to be experiencing some significant changes next year. Some of these are highlighted. For example, the Traditional Academy, Union Park, Mirage, Greenbrier, and of course Bel Air is incorporated inside the Traditional Academy. So we have those meetings. We do check-ins with those principals. We ask them about any changes that have happened in the prior week. We talk about communication plans. We talk about what support they might need, and we also talk about recruiting plans as well. A couple of recent highlights. As you know, Monday, the Traditional Academy had a virtual meet and greet with the staff. Many families watched that and provided some positive comments. And we also have one planned for Union Park that's coming very soon, where we will have a national immersion expert present to the community and then have a question and answer session as well for those parents that are interested, but perhaps still a little bit hesitant with immersion education. And so that will be a great event that is coming very soon. We also have been transitioning our new principals, so Tina Craig and Darlene Baumgartner, who you had approved at our last board meeting. So Jen Miner has done a great job with that. She works with most principals, making sure that they are aware of what's happening now during the COVID-19 activities so that they are aware and they can help use that information as they prepare for next year. And then also our parent support virtual sessions. I mentioned this at our last board meeting. This has been led by Scott Warner. You are familiar with Dr. Max McGee and Katie McPherson. They are the two that have done our community conversations in the past. And so what we have done is contracted with them to present a series of positive parenting practice workshops for social media and for screen time, given that students have more access to that with the school closures. And so that first session actually will begin this week. We provided that in the parent communication that went out today. That will be Thursday. Most of the sessions start at 7 p.m. and they'll be in a Zoom webinar format. Those sessions will also be recorded so that families can view those if that time is not convenient for them. And we believe that the sessions will be very valuable. They are targeted to different audiences, so they'll be differentiated, in other words. So there'll be sessions for parents of kindergarten through fifth grade students. We'll have middle school sessions and we'll have high school sessions. One of the things that we know is very important for our high schoolers is the importance of the digital footprint. And so knowing that what they put on now can have implications for them later in life. And so again, especially during the closure, we believe this will be a good session for our parents and for some of our students to attend. So we look forward to presenting more to you about how these sessions are going, because perhaps these can be something that we look forward in the future as well. Federal programs, continue to be proud of them, the contributions that they are making. They continue to assist our families with items such as housing, with food, and also keeping on some of our students and making sure that they're keeping up with some of their work, especially the students in our group homes who may not have their parents present. And so being a caring adult in their lives. And so I continue to hear the stories about their connections each week. And I look forward to reporting more out on those because they are doing a great job. Also, with our virtual PDs, as I mentioned to you at the last board meeting, business has not stopped with this, and we continue to make sure that our folks that are in the bullpen to become future administrators, that we have continued with those sessions, although albeit they're online. Jen Miner has been leading with that, and so you can see here a picture of some of the responses from the last meeting that we had. And we continue to plan for other PDs via the virtual format, and so those will continue. And then lastly here for ALS communications, you can see the part about DVUSD seniors. This one is certainly one that we all hear feedback from the community on because we know how cherished this graduation ceremony is. We did have some more information that was shared to us today from State Farm. And so that part of that information was in the update that went to parents. So we put just a very a quick brief blurb in the parent update that went out today, informing the parents of the mini survey. If you recall, in the prior two updates, we told the community that we would solicit input from them on the graduation survey. And so today was the day that the link went out with the mini survey to them. The window is short. It is not a long window, and it's short because the timing that's needed in order to make some decisions, there's some urgency to it. And so it's a 48-hour window. I can tell you that within the first, I believe, 48 minutes, we had, I think, more than 600 responses on that from Dr. Smith. So I anticipate us getting a very high number of responses from the parents of our seniors on that. That window, again, as I mentioned, will close Thursday afternoon, and then I anticipate reporting back to the parents on Friday as far as what the next steps will be. We will likely have Plan A for our families in the very near future. So that could come as early as Friday afternoon and perhaps early next week. Okay, for that. There are other items related to our seniors as well. You mentioned a little bit about that in your updates. So we'll continue to make sure that we're in conversation with our high school principals about that. We'll continue to make sure that Karen Meyer is looped in as well because she handles a lot of that. I had a lengthy conversation with her today. So items related to their checkout, items related to their senior pictures, all of those things, we're making sure that our seniors are getting those because we know, again, it's very important to our students. And so we want to make sure that they have as positive of an ending of the school year as possible, given the changes that we have had. Dr. Galligan?
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch, just wanted to remind you that we do have the home learning philosophy, and it continues to frame our work, even through the end of this semester and quarter. I wanted also to let you know that we hold very carefully to these workload expectations for students and for our teachers. I know, Ms. Reed, you mentioned that, but we want to make sure that our teachers also take care of themselves. And so holding firm to that time for them as well as the students that they work with. So we continue to communicate that information with our administrators and out to our teachers. And then I just wanted to remind you again that synchronous learning started when New Learning began last week, but it's an option. It's a may. We do have many teachers from preschool all the way up who are participating with kids in synchronous learning, but the caveat to that is it is only when they are doing direct instruction. They don't tape. They post whatever they do tape after that so that all students can look at it if they want afterwards. So those directions right there are part of the expectations we have for teachers, just for their safety, student safety, and to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our kids' faces and names out of the public eye.
Dr. Galligan, sorry to interrupt. Do all of our teachers have the instructions on how to do the recording? Because I had been hearing some comments about we don't have the ability to record, we would have to pay to record. So has that communication gone back out to everybody?
Well, we'll make sure that it goes back out.
Okay.
Both Zoom and Google Meet can be recorded, and there is no cost.
Right,
So
right. And I knew that. I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
It was in particular to Zoom is where I was hearing some of the comments and concerns about. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, we'll get that out this week. Then you all have had this information, but I did want to just bring back the fourth quarter grading for K-8 and high school grading. As we have emphasized with our teachers, as well as communicated with our parents, our teachers are working on the most essential standards that they have either not covered this year or that they feel they needed to finish up. If you think about it, we did cover 3 quarters of instruction right before state testing. So for many of our content areas, not all, but for many, they had really worked to get their instruction done on the essential standards prior to that. Sometimes math is a little bit different because skills continue to build, but that's what their focus is on the most essential. I know there had been a concern during review that there was some busy work, and we've really also talked with our administrators to ensure that the work that the teachers have on either their Canvas, their Google Classroom, or for our K2 teachers who are doing just their weekly schedule on the teacher website, that they are completely minimizing busy work so that we can focus on those essential standards. And then I just wanted to again show that this is what we've communicated with our families as well as our teachers and administrators. And I can tell you that sometimes the way things can be read by multiple people in different ways really makes it you have to be very intentional on every single word that you put out there. So what we really want for everyone to understand is that the instruction that we have for new instruction is supposed to be meaningful, engaging, and really just focus on the most essential standards and skills. So this helps us just frame that work a little bit better for our teachers and then for our parents. One of the things that Gary might be sharing, but I'm going to steal it. This morning we had our admin Tuesday morning meeting. And since last week was our first week of new instruction, one of the first things that was asked was, okay, administrators, tell us how week 1 of new instruction went. And there were at least 60 plus campus administrators. Every single one but one said amazing, great. It was a amazing experience. There were only positive comments about how well last week went. So that just goes to our teachers and the administrators who have really worked with their teachers to ensure that they have a positive attitude and that they're continuing to grow in their own practice. So I wanted to give kudos to our teachers for completing that first week of new learning. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jim.
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. I thought I was going to get to do a sunshine story, but I didn't. I didn't get to. So I'm going to take.
You're the rain
Do it
cloud.
You can do it now.
You know what,
I
Jim?
think
just
the
because
reason why is because my sunshine story was going to be about a Black Sea. And the Black Sea is actually Union Park. So we paved the parking lot at Union Park. So a big milestone for us. We continue to do, I don't
Can we
know
clap
if it's
for that?
clap-worthy, but our construction projects continue to operate. Obviously, we're practicing all the safe work environment conditions that everybody is well aware of now. But not only at Union Park, but also at Bel Air, we've been able to accelerate the work there. So not on the slide, but just wanted to maybe give a shout out to the teams that continue to work on those two exciting projects for us. Also a celebration. This does not include yesterday's distribution of meals, but you can see kind of a progression as we steeply ramped up over the weeks there, is what the graph is showing. So combined now, you would have to add another more than 15,000 meals is what we served yesterday on Monday for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday meals. So well over 216,000 meals and counting. It is getting warmer, so there are some additional challenges we're certainly taking into consideration. So starting on Monday, May 4th, we're going to change the delivery times, and we're communicating that out to our public, so they're well aware of the time changes. We've added coolers at the locations for our staff to make sure that they don't get overheated, and some additional shade as well for those people that are continuing to provide this very valuable service to our community. On the device distribution, just shy of 3,500 Chromebooks have been distributed over the 5 different mass distributions that we did. At Barry Goldwater and Boulder Creek High School. Now we are at the point where we're doing individualized distribution. So anybody that did not make one of those 5 mass distributions, the schools are helping us coordinate with those individual families, and we've been even able to provide additional devices for families that have a large number of children in their families, so there's not as much need for sharing of devices. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Moffitt. You got one slide, so I'll do it. I'll work for it.
Good evening, President Ordway, governing board members. So just a quick update on some of the work that we also have been doing in human resources surrounding the closure. As you know, at the last governing board meeting, we brought forward the certified evaluation process for modification, but we've also had to make some adjustments to our other evaluation processes, including timelines. So we've communicated those out. One benefit that we believe has come out of this closure is the more urgent need to update some of our practices, and this we think will be one of those. So currently our exempt and classified evaluation processes are still conducted on paper, and we have to obtain signatures on paper, and that is really challenging. We're in an environment like this, so we are currently in conversation with our HR management system side, which is Winocular for us, and they're building a workflow process for us so that we can put it, words aren't coming to me, an electronic process together for that. So yay for that. Bullet item number 2, employee relations. So quite a few of us were helping out. You know that Lisa, our employee relations coordinator. However, many of us are managing day-to-day operations related to COVID-19 needs, and they're very individualized and specific to employees, whether it be similar to what Ms. Reed mentioned, a struggle with trying to work at the same time that you are managing the learning of your students. That fits within the new FFCRA guidelines. So we're helping each employee that is seeing themselves in one of these situations manage that, and making sure that they're assigned to the right work or have the ability to go on leave if necessary. And then we are monitoring work plans. As you know, each campus and each work site has been asked to put together a work plan and keep that plan updated for each of their employees. And we also make sure that it's accurately is reflecting those that do need things pertaining to COVID-19. Our virtual career fair, in the update, we shared with you that we had a great turnout for our first virtual career fair. Another great thing that is coming out of this closure is vendors that are coming forward and are more flexible with helping us out with different models of recruitment. And it was nicely attended, and we have gathered more candidates than what I shared with you on Friday. And this vendor is providing 2 more opportunities for us coming up really quickly. Continuation of hiring staffing processes, as always, but in a little bit new form. And then our mentors are still conducting their meetings. They're doing those virtually, and we are collecting information from them as well. Some new updated information today was shared with our human capital team group, specific to some questions that you presented at the beginning of today's governing board meeting. So we are collecting information on exit and collecting information from those that are choosing to stay with us to gather more insights to help us move forward with recruitment and retention. So we'd be happy to share that information with you in the future.
So I just had a couple quick questions for Mrs. Moffett. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So am I correct in understanding that none of our employees have been furloughed or laid off or taken any kind of a pay cut, that all of our employees are currently receiving their pay and have their benefits intact?
So I believe, Ms. Frank, your question was, are all our employees receiving payment? If they are active employees with us, yes, they are receiving payment. And that provision is provided by House Bill 2910. If an employee has chosen, has been presented with their options and chosen to take a leave that would change that, then the laws that would govern that would now be outlined in whatever leave they chose to take. But yes, our employees are receiving payment. They're either assigned active work on site, they're working from home, or they're available on call.
Okay. So unlike so many other sectors of the economy at this time, our employees have not had to face the challenges of possibly a decrease in income, loss of benefits, loss of job. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We also, Ms.
And then also for employees who may be having difficulties, we do have our employee assistance program. So employees do have the option to get help if they're stressed out or if they're having some type of anxiety or problems. Is that correct as well?
That is also correct. Yes, they have access to their EAP. They also have access to people to speak with in HR that can help them navigate their individual circumstances.
Okay. Well, I would just like to express my appreciation I'm really grateful that Deer Valley is able to take care of our employees at this time when there's so many other folks in various different professions who either are frontline workers who aren't able to work from home in a safe environment or are facing loss of income, furlough days, and various other things. I know in my own family I have one son who was completely laid off, another son who was furloughed 2 days a week, and then another son who works at Amazon, and trust me, he's not fulfilling those orders from my kitchen. So he's in a situation where you can't effectively socially distance. So I'm just really grateful that our employees in Deer Valley aren't facing those circumstances. And a big thank you to Human Resources for making sure everyone's taken care of. I really appreciate it, so thank you.
Okay, and so in our final two slides, it is the preview of our next 2 weeks, which is inclusive of this week. And so this is week 6. And in week 6, we continue with our new learning. We continue with our meetings, as Dr. Galligan hinted at before, with our administrators and other leaders across the district. Continuing with our valuable service of our meal distributions. Making sure that we are monitoring some of the data that we can collect regarding our connections with students in the home. Continuing again, as I've mentioned before, with our graduation and promotion communication. And then also making sure that our schools are continuing to make those connections with families. One bullet point that is not on there that I wanted to mention, and since my colleague is here in the audience, Dr. Chunis, that she is also leading a small group of folks to help students that are going into Deer Valley Middle School, that are at Deer Valley Middle School, and that are leaving Deer Valley Middle School going into Berry Goldwater, as far as providing them some extra support with math. And so you would think that sometimes these types of things just take a few folks to get into the room and talk it out some, and that you would have a final product. But this takes quite a few folks making sure that there is some really intentional, some strategic planning going into it, and they are really focused, and they're going to make some great things happen for the students this summer because we've been putting some extra love, as you know, and some extra attention on Deer Valley Middle. And so this is another example of how we're trying to do that for the students that are there. So thank you, Dr. T. And then next week, week 7, our first bullet point is Teacher Appreciation Week. So we mustn't forget that. We spent a little bit of time today in our virtual meeting with our administrators, dialoguing and discussing some ideas that folks can use. And then the other ones are similar to the prior slide. And so with that, we would love to field any additional questions that you may have.
Ms. Tweedy, go ahead.
Okay, I have 2 questions. So the first one's probably Mr. Miglerino's. So I heard, and I don't know if this is accurate, is the district receiving $4.8 million in federal relief funds for the coronavirus, the schools?
President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, the federal stimulus dollars, also referred to as the CARES Act, we predict it'll be somewhere between $3.5 and $3.7 million.
Okay, because I got forwarded, I guess. Well, I guess it's irrelevant because to my question, whether the figure I was sent was right or the figure you're saying. But how is that going to be spent? What's the restrictions on that money, and what's the plan?
The actual CARES Act has 12 different specific programs that can be funded from that. We believe that we are compiling a list of things that are going to need to be backfilled as a result of not being able to have some of the revenue provided. So I don't have a comprehensive list to give you, but just as a for example, many of our cash accounts, so the food service operation and the more than 200,000 meals that we serve, we don't have any revenue coming in for all those meals that we're serving outside of the summer feeding program reimbursement that comes from the National School Lunch Program. So we're going to be short on the revenue to be able to cover the expenses from that very entrepreneurial account. Our print shop has been printing the no-tech, low-tech, and no-tech packets at no cost to our families. So we'll have some costs associated with that. Our community ed programs are not running at this time, but yet all of those individuals are being paid, as the question was asked earlier. So there's no revenue to support those cash counts. Those are just, for example, a list. We know that we have some technology needs that are going to need to be addressed as a result of this. We mentioned how many Chromebooks that we've distributed to families. We don't know how many of those are going to come back, or what the repercussions might be, or additional technology that we might need to support. However, how long we're going to be operating in this. Different model that we're in today. So those are just ideas that we're kicking around. We know that we're also going to need to provide additional supports for students because the learning hasn't been the same as if they would have been in class, in the classroom setting. So we know we're going to have to provide additional supports for our students to make sure that they can meet the standards that and our expectations of a district as we move forward and coming back to whatever the new normal will look like.
So then I guess as a follow-up question, when we receive that money and start to spend it, because I was getting questions about it, can we just include that in this PowerPoint, like what we receive and how we're spending it, so the public that has questions about it could clearly see what decisions are being made and what was received? And just add that to the COVID PowerPoint?
Clearly, we can provide that information, but just to be clear, we do not have the money.
No, when it comes, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Because I'm assuming this is going to be a mainstay at the board meetings.
If you remember too, 2 points I want to re-emphasize from Mr. M there is one, it has guidelines. So we can get you those on a Friday update, those 12 things, those 12 principles that you can spend it on. And then the second point is when or if it comes, I'm assuming it's going to be late, as everything else has been late. It might even splash over into next year as well. But it'll have a bunch of paperwork to follow. It'll have a bunch of rules that will follow with it. So it will keep you informed on what we can spend it on. And then, because remember, we can't supplant. That's a big deal with federal money. So it's one-time money, and you can only use it for the things they tell you can use it for. And so once we get that information and once we get the dollars, then we'll be able to do.
I understand all that. I just want to make sure, because I'm getting questions, just so everybody understands what we received, when we received it, and how we spent it. I'm not saying how we should spend it. I'm just asking to put it in the PowerPoint so everyone can see what we're doing.
Right. So maybe on the COVID part or the federal part on the website, not that everyone jumps there, but CARES Act could be put there. Just general information, because we certainly don't have the money yet. And again, going back to all the meals, I don't know how or when we're going to be reimbursed for all that. And I have, did you have anything? Because I'll go after you. Go ahead.
Wanted to say that ASBA, ASBO, and ADE are doing a webinar on the CARES Act on Wednesday, and that'll be recorded. So in case
as long as you register for it.
So it's specifically about the rollout and when we expect to receive dollars, that good stuff.
And even if you don't register for it, it'll be available on the ASBA website
at those times, because I'm working.
But if you register, then they will email it directly to you.
And
once
then you can watch it over and over again.
Okay. Yeah, it'll show up right in your email.
Well, you always get something out of it after you watch it twice. So I've got a couple of questions. What's going on with physical mail for our schools? What are we doing with all that mail?
So currently, I can answer that, Dr. Zerwa.
Thank you. Yeah, Heather's
currently
in the house.
We're holding on to their mail. We're following the same procedure that we would during the summer. And then once we have our next update from the governor, we may move forward. There's no one at the schools to deliver it to at the moment.
Right.
We have had some special cases where they were waiting for a refund from a field trip. We have asked anything that looks like a check to be delivered to finance so that we can deposit it, make sure we've got the money in order to refund parents. And a couple other special pieces of mail that schools were waiting for. If they asked for us, we just asked the warehouse to see if they could find it. But otherwise, we're holding on to other standard mail until we're able to deliver it to the schools.
So the mail is going to the warehouse? All the mails? going to the warehouse?
Warehouse
or-
picks up postal mail, correct,
Okay. From the different campus or buildings, campuses?
from the post office.
So nothing's going to the school.
Correct.
So it's
And if
exactly
they have
like
something
the
they
summer.
correct.
Okay.
And if they have something they need to mail out, they've been emailing me directly, and we work on their specific situation as well.
Okay.
We recommend if they can take their P card to the post office and mail it, or if that won't work for them, we'll see what else we can do.
Okay. And then Jim,
with
at
that
some,
too, President Ordway, with that too, just to add on, there are some pieces related to grants that have
Mhm.
some time-specific deadlines that are not going to carry over, and so Ms. Mock has worked with us on those situations, making sure that in the mail that we get what we need for that. So, yeah.
okay, that's great. And Jim, at some point in time, if you could give us typically, say at the end of April, during a typical year, how many meals we would have, like pick 2 weeks, how many meals we would have served as opposed to what we're serving, so we can physically see that it's a crazy amount of meals. I just wanted the number that we typically would serve if school was in session, and then just give us your 242,000 meals that we're doing now.
Yeah, President Ordway, I can give you just anecdotally. So
That's fine.
we serve when we're in session, we'll serve maybe 17, 18,000 meals a day. We're currently serving just over 5,000 meals
Okay.
a day.
All right. Yeah, you didn't have to give it to me right now. It was just a question.
That's how good he is.
And I didn't say I thought you were right. All right. Anybody else, Miss Reed?
Sorry. I have two quick questions. One is related to mail, and I don't know if this is something for you or parents need to ask the principal specifically, but for some of the students, for our seniors who are expecting scholarship announcements that are mailed to the school, like National Merit Scholarship information, how are they getting that information delivered to them?
Ms. Reed, we haven't had any requests for that. I certainly can work with the high schools. Dr. Zerbach and I will get together and see what we can do with the high schools to make sure that we're looking for that as well. Thank you.
I think actually we receive notification as well. Before even the principals are notified. So we would know about it and we would contact those parents too.
Okay, so when it comes in, the district will take care of contacting. Okay. And then Dr. Z, I just was curious what the survey question was that went out to senior parents today.
Sure, Mr. Reed. So it's a one-question survey, and it asks about the parents' standing as far as would they be in favor of a ceremony, an in-person ceremony in the summer, rather than in May, if it's looking like May is not going to be available, and so would they be in favor of that? Okay.
My question was on the survey because I got the survey because I'm a parent.
So you want your kid to go another lap, not graduate this year?
Yeah. So I'm sending them back to you guys
Yeah,
until
that's
you
fine.
can hold a ceremony on time. You can put no, my question in getting that survey, and so of course as a parent, I thought, well, great if we can have a ceremony at all. But then I was also thinking the kids going off to college and going into the service. So has there been any thought into being able to do something? I mean, because my guess is anyone staying here would be open to that, but people who, and I'm sure vacation plans are getting canceled, so that won't be a big deal. But the kids going into the service and off to college, have we thought of, because, even if you got 75% yeses, there would be 25% of the seniors not recognized. Like, what would we do for those students, and putting some thought into that?
Yes, President Ordway, Ms. Treaty, we recognize it's not going to be a perfect solution for all with that. What I did do today is I had a conversation with the high school principals about items such as the senior awards that they have. And so we talked about some of the things that they are looking at doing over the next month to help with some of what you're talking about. And so whether they will do some of their program presentations that they might deliver to the students ahead of time or other things like that. Those are some of the ideas that were being talked about today.
I mean, I guess, and I don't know the guidelines, but if you were able to have a graduation and distance the kids and distance the families and then stream it for the rest, just in the parents, not families, like small groups, and that you could, and then stream it for everyone else. Is that a possibility?
Yes, Ms. Tweedy, that's something that we are looking into.
Mrs. O'Brien?
What is in a normal, or I should say a more typical school year, there would be students who maybe were not promoted on to the next grade level. And I know that one of the concerns with home learning was grades and getting kids to learn. What is our policy about promoting kids to the next grade?
Dr. Gelga, do you want to answer that one? I know there was a conversation today with some of us on that exact topic.
President Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, if a student was in the process for retention, which means parents received information in the fall, they received information in mid-year, and information generally before spring break, it's through letters and conversation, then the principals are going to proceed with conversations with parents if the kids were already in that process. If they were not, we will not be moving forward. However, for middle school, we have the procedure, the policy, that students who have a failing grade in any one of their core contents either has to take summer school or is retained. And so we are working right now with our K-8 schools and our 3 true middle schools just to see how many kids have the potential for their grades through the third quarter to not be able to make that up. And then we'll go from there.
Thank you very much. And then I don't know if now is the right time. I'm going to ask this, and then you can tell me if we should talk about this later, because I know we're going to talk about curriculum for K-8. But given the home learning online and the unknown of what's to come, are we looking at having some K-8 curriculum that would be online if, God forbid, we end up here again in the fall or the spring? Is that something we're talking about at all?
Ms. Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, many of the current resources that we have digital licenses for. That would not necessarily be true for our babies, but we do have resources that we have used in our classrooms for foundational reading skills. So we're currently working on 3 plans. One plan is coming back for transitional learning brick and mortar. Another plan is coming back blended. And then another one is coming back remote. So right now we're working on getting the coming back brick and mortar set first, and then we're diving into the other 2. We feel very confident in most of the resources that we have. For those that may not have digital licenses, we have been able to find materials that we've already used in our classrooms as support materials that we've been able to boost up. But yes, we would continue to implement the best resources that are available to us for kids.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
I would add to that, Ms. O'Brien, too, that in the first board meeting in May, you can expect to hear from us much more on summer school as well, as far as what are the different the pieces that will be occurring in the summer. Because as you're aware, we do online summer school. We have pathways. We have the Deer Valley Middle School piece that I just mentioned. There's also another middle school component that happens for students that are needing help moving and getting their grades up before high school. And so those discussions are happening, and we will continue to have those. So expect in this update the next time we meet, much more information on what will be happening in the summer.
Okay, thank you. I have another question regarding our students that are homeless students, and then any students actually. What is the number, and I don't need it tonight, but if we could have it in the Friday update, that we have not been able to contact. I was at the West Ed. Well, I was at home, but we were having the West Ed board meeting virtually. And one of the things that came up was one of the states is struggling with contacting thousands and thousands of their students. And so that number from that conversation made me nervous. I know that our district has been working diligently to ensure we're making contact. But if we can just get that number on where we're at of kids we've not had any contact with, that would be wonderful.
Yes, we can get that for you, Ms. O'Brien. We have two folks in federal programs, so Stephanie Berger and Tricia Colella. They have been doing this each week, and so they report out on Tuesdays when we have a virtual Zoom. Life is on Zoom now, right?
Yes.
And so they have a section when they report out on some of our connections with our homeless families. So we can make sure that they give us some of that information.
And with that also, could we also have the students, if we're having trouble at our 38 campuses where we're missing those, and in our next COVID update, could we receive some additional information about special education and how that is going and the resources that we have? I appreciate the sunshine story, but if we could have some additional information, that would be great.
Yes, Mr. O'Brien, and that too will make a connection to the summer piece because there's the extended school year, ESY.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so those conversations too are happening right now. In fact, there was one today with Principal Feinberg as they have been involved with that over the prior years. And so I caught the tail end of that conversation. So that information as well as more global information involving students with disabilities we can certainly present.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Does that wrap that up for you? Or do you have more for us?
I think we have 8 more slides, Dr. G.
Only 8 more?
Oh, 12? Okay, 12.
12. Okay, well, we'll save that dozen for later. So what do we have next? We have consent agenda.
Yes, public comments are suspended, and then we have consent agenda. I move that the governing board approve action items 4A through 4G.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Abstain.
And then we've got 5A.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to pre-approve the addenda as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? No. Moving to 5B.
I move that the governing board approve the recommendation from administration regarding amended certified performance pay plan for 2019-2020 as per attachment. And this is Mrs.
Okay. So
Well,
on behalf
before
of,
that, we
Sure.
need to get a second.
I second.
And discussion?
On behalf of Dr. Smith, I'm sharing this information with you today. This is our committee, Performance Pay Committee, that came together to take a look at our current performance pay plan for certificated staff members to make recommended revisions. If you recall from last governing board meeting, we gave you a little bit of a preview on what might be coming today. So here's the list of specific recommendations that the committee is making. First, they are recommending that no changes be made evaluation component. Since your action taken at the last governing board meeting, we would be leaving standards 1 through 6 for the certified evaluation. So because those will not be impacted, they may remain as part of the performance pay plan. They also are recommending that we reduce responsibility hours from the 20 that are typically in the plan down to 15. This reflects the portion of the year we were in conventional school. Next, they added a few suggestions for teachers to obtain the hours needed if they don't already have them. And those are listed. If you see in the attachment, they've made some recommendations there. They also are suggesting that we soften the need for written and signed documentation of hours. So in the principal feels confident that the hours that they had completed are indeed accurate, and they have conducted that meeting through Zoom, or they have received that information through an email, that would be sufficient. We want to be as flexible as possible. And then a specified statement for using last year's letter grade if the state does not provide a new letter grade, which is exactly what's going to occur. We have had this statement in previous plans. So, again, moving forward, it would just mean that the data from last year is what we would be using as part of this year's implementation of performance pay. And because of that, we would not need to separate the payments into two as we wait for those scores to come in. Instead, we would be able to complete the performance pay payments in one round. And then lastly, there you'll see that it's a reminder to our administrators that if a 45-day notice plan is in motion, that would remain going into the future year, because our performance pay plan now indicates that if someone is being non-renewed through the 45-day notice process, that they would not qualify for performance pay. So since those are paused at this time, that would not be a factor.
Could you say that again, Mrs. Moffett? That last
The
part.
45-day
Yes.
portion. So in the plan as it exists right now, if one of our employees is non-renewed through the 45-day process, which is in statute, so if they meet the criteria for non-renewal and the board were to approve it, they don't qualify for performance pay. But because we are pausing on our 45-day notice processes right now, any of our employees that are on a 45-day notice and will continue employment with us into next year, they still have the possibility of qualifying for performance pay.
So if they have a 45-day notice and they did not sign their contract, are they eligible for this pay?
Yes, they would be.
And so whether they signed their contract or not for next year, everybody with a 45-day notice would be eligible.
That is correct.
Okay. And then, well, I drew a blank. Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
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 It took a while to come up.
Okay, so we're moving to 6A preview, and that would be, let me guess,
NST.
the person who didn't bring snacks, Mr. Miglerino.
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. So we are bringing back the salary recommendation. So I don't know if this would be the revised salary recommendation, but it is just a preview item. Again, seeking more input as we kind of work through kind of some of the changes. Last time when we met on April 14th, I orally gave you some of the changes, and that was really confusing. I apologize for that, but all that information came out late Friday, and the board packet was already done. So we've now updated that information in this presentation. On the first couple slides, nothing changes here other than NST did meet again. So now we have 2 Zoom meetings under our belt, and looking for more, planning for more, I should say. I don't know if anybody's looking forward to it. I guess I am, but I don't. You have to ask the rest of the members if they're looking forward to it or not, for their own opinion. And we really didn't change much of the budget assumptions, but some of the dollars that I was trying to just review with you changed more. So I know I'm skipping through a lot of these slides. We've looked at this already twice. This will be the 3rd time. We've struck the areas that have changed from the first time, just so you can track. We've highlighted in yellow the numbers that have changed on our budget projection. And I wanted to give special credit to Ms. Mock for all her work putting together all the information related to our budget projection. We've had conversations with NST and would like to make the comment that we have had to alter some of our thinking when it comes to the plan for next year. The legislature did approve a budget, what is being referred to as a skinny budget. So it's different than what our original projection was. But Also, some of the numbers changed as a result of the classroom site fund allocation and how the final installment of the 20% by 2020 initiative that the governor put together, how that was distributed between the classroom site fund and our base support level amount for next year. It will change in fiscal year 22 again, but we now know what to expect for fiscal year 21. So the numbers that have changed, inflation, the inflation line here, third line there, went up significantly. It was a little, almost just over $3.5 million in the original plan. We are seeing that there's going to be more money provided in the base support level for the 20% by 2020 initiative than originally was thought to be provided. We had a projection of about, I think it was $2.6 million, $2.7 million in classroom site fund. That's actually going to be $1.5 million. So they kind of offset themselves in total revenue. So the inflation line went up and the classroom site fund dollar amount went down. Not shown here. The cash accounts, we were projecting an increase of $600,000 in the 5 cash accounts that we use to provide for annual needs throughout the district. With the current situation that we're contending with, we don't think that those cash accounts are going to produce that sustained revenue. So we're going to keep the cash account amount flat for fiscal year 21, so it'll be the same as it was in fiscal year 20 instead of the $600,000 increase that we were originally projecting. Again, trying to be more conservative with the plan for next year. The district additional assistance is one of the things that was sacrificed in the skinny budget. So this was double that amount for a full restoration of district additional assistance. This is now a partial restoration. As part of that plan for fiscal year 22, they have provided an intent that they will fully restore it by fiscal year 22. So that will be an increase for us to look forward to in fiscal year 22, assuming that there aren't any other changes that happen between now and when we get to fiscal year 22. That's a long way away, right? And then finally, the carry forward got better. We looked at the March M&O report at the April 14th meeting, and we had a delta of $838,000 difference in carry forward. It's now down to just $376,000, and that does not include the May revision. So Ms. Mock has provided some information about the May revision increasing that amount. So I know that's a double negative, right? So it's a negative number that's going to get to be a positive number by the time we get the May budget revision. That May budget revision will happen at the May 12th board meeting, and we are also considering to bring this back for hopefully formal consideration by May 12th for the sole reason that we can get all of the other processes in place, including starting salary amounts for all the different groups, contracts to our employees, et cetera, et cetera. So we basically are looking at, with all those changes, a little over $11.4 million in additional revenue from all of those different sources. On the expense side, I did see a slight increase on the expense side as well. So you see the school administrators, we've moved the school administrators for Union Park back into the M&O fund. We originally had those assigned to the school opening fund. So we do have $900,000 set aside in the school opening fund. Again, trying to take a more conservative approach to make sure that we have expenses covered on an ongoing basis and not count on one-time funding that would be the case for the school opening fund. We do have other changes to the certified staff. That's just ongoing changes as we're developing the plan for next year. So it went from just over $5 million to just over $5.6 million. So about a $600,000 increase on the expense side. So what was $3.7 million is now $5.8 million of additional uncommitted revenue for next year. When we add the $2.1 million that was previously designated to carry forward from fiscal year 20 into fiscal year 21, leaves us just shy of $8 million in additional revenue that could be assigned for future uses into next year. Mainly in the case of all of the plans that we have would be for salary increases, which is shown on this slide here. The way the salary formula works is we take the percentage of total for each employee group, and that determines what share of the increase they are designated. So if we were to assign $8.8 million, which is what is being suggested by NST, that $8.8 million is multiplied by the percentage for each group. So if you follow along with me here, almost 61% of all of our salaries are certified salaries. So 61% of $8.8 million ends up being $5.3 million. Their 5% increase is $5.2 million. And we're going to have to make up the shortfall for the classroom site fund. So you would add the $441,000 that's near the bottom of this calculation to get the total amount that's being allocated of M&O funds to that particular group. So in this case, about $5.6 million assigned to the certified group, of which by formula would be $5.3 million. I just wanted you to see the math that's associated with this and then talk about the percentages. Last time we spoke about the different percentage amounts from feedback that we got from the governing board as well as from the NST group itself. They thought it was confusing if we were to give a larger raise to one group that's going to be offset by, in this case, the classroom site fund is going down for next year, is decreasing. So we are making that provision up with the $441,000 you see here, but we reduced the certified increase per their request to 5%. So the certified and other professional staff would receive a 5% increase, and they would be held harmless from the decrease that's happening in the classroom site fund. We also believe that in fiscal year 22, because the classroom site fund will no longer be providing any portion of the final installment of the 20% by 2020 initiative, that the classroom site fund will go back to an amount more like what we had seen in the previous year to fiscal year 21. So they'll be held harmless so it doesn't decrease in 1 year to return back to an amount in a previous year, and that requires us to backfill that with M&O. So that's where you see that $441,540 down below. The classified and admin group, the raises there, the classified group did not change, so remained at 4%. We also have two provisions that are included in the $1.9 million that deal with compression on the bottom end of our salary schedule for our lowest paid employees due to minimum wage increases, as well as a reclassification for our paraprofessionals. That's also included in that $1.9 million you see for that particular group. And NST did increase the amount of the projected or the suggested salary increase for the administrative exempt group from 3% to 4%. Because when we do the calculation, they are 7.5% of the total salary spend. So their employee group share is $661,000. Even at 4%, we are only distributing $551,480 of those dollars. At 3%, it is significantly less than that. It's about $135,000 for each percentage. Included in that $551,000 is an increase in the number of days for our dean positions at schools, so that they will match the number of, so their start date and end date match the other assistant principals on the campuses. They don't align currently, and so this will at least have them on the campuses the same amount of days as our other school-based administrators. With all that said, we had about $8 million in unallocated money. The raise as presented here is $8.8 million, so we're about $900,000 short to make that under a very conservative budget, which we know is going to increase due to the May budget revision, is going to add more than $1 million of carry forward, and that's where we project to get the funds necessary to cover what is being projected or proposed by the NST here. The next couple pages just really kind of provide the detail of this in narrative form. that's really prescriptive for us for how we distribute the raises, starting with professional growth and going through the salary increases here. I think what's notable on this slide happens to be the starting teacher salary, to make sure that we don't have a second year teacher making less money than a first year teacher. So the starting salary would be $41,500. And likewise, we changed the increase for the other professional staff from so that because there's various starting salaries in that group, so they'd get a 5% salary increase, but the starting salary would only increase by 4%. So there'd be a 1% difference between a second year continuing teacher and a first year starting teacher. It's worth noting on this page, because this was also part of the discussion that came up the last two times we talked about this, is the certified group, the Deer Valley Education Association, has reaffirmed their desire to have their salary increase paid as a complete percentage increase. So not to be distributed as a flat dollar increase and a percentage increase where it gets split between those two. They would like to see it just be a 5% increase to the base contract that they have for both the certified teachers as well as the other professional staff. For the classified staff, they actually wanted to see a 60-40 split of their increase. So 60% of it will be a percentage increase. So 60% of the 4% is a 2.4% increase. And then 40% of their flat dollar increase ends up being 25 cents per hour. And then we increased the starting salary by the flat dollar amount. So each starting rate would increase by 25 cents per hour. You can see the compression that we're dealing with from range 15 through 19 here, and the reclassification of the paraprofessional positions from range 14 to 17. The only change here on the admin exempt, they want to see a 50-50 split of their raise. So 50% of their 4% increase would be 2%, and the 50% of their flat dollar increase ends up being $1,589. And that would be the amount added to the starting salary range for each of the admin exempt levels that we have on our salary schedule. Another change from last time is the classroom site fund. Again, I'm using the term will be held harmless. So the amount that's in their salary will be held harmless. So these amounts are the exact same amounts that exist in this year's classroom site fund approved plan. And so that would mean that their amount would not change. That is, their portion of their base salary would not change from these amounts. One thing that's worth noting, the performance pay is approved separately, and so that amount would change slightly. And this gets very technical, so I'll try not to get too far in the weeds. It doesn't change as much as the other funds because of the way they're going to distribute the classroom site fund and the increase for the 20 by 2020 initiative. But there would be a slight decrease in the performance pay amount for the certified group in FY21 due to the reduction of the amount per student. And then we changed some triggers. Whenever we have some uncertainty, we like to add trigger language into our salary recommendation. In this case, we created a minimum threshold, which is just about a 0.5% increase at $800,000. A full 1% is about $1.7 million. Then if we get above the $800,000, to make sure we have some type of cushion, again, not knowing how long we might be contending with the recovery, the economic recovery from the pandemic or any other fallout from the pandemic. Once we get an additional $1.7 million, so $2.5 million over our projection, then we would be reinstating the additional percentages that we brought to you initially. So you have to go back 2 meetings to get to that. So you would increase each of the groups by 1%. So from 5 to 6 for the certified and OPS, 4 to 5 for the classified and admin exempt group. And then any amount above an additional $400,000. So now we're talking about $2.9 million over the projection. That would go to reinstate the MIPS funded positions that were part of the futures study report. There are several positions that will be in our special education department to support that population. We'll fund them out of the Medicaid and Public Schools Fund for FY21. If we end up with some additional revenue, we'd like to make sure that they had a dedicated funding source from M&O moving forward. So with that, I need to. I think I've been told to remind you that the DVEA has not ratified this at this point in time. I think we're looking for some additional feedback from the board this evening for them to take it back through their process for ratification. And we welcome any support that or any input that the board would have so that we can include that in a future NST meeting, which will be a virtual meeting.
We did get a copy of a survey. So was that survey? Well, I mean, it doesn't have everything that you just presented, but what are the? I mean, was everybody together on this? I mean, nobody was kicking.
President Ordway, no, I think there was agreement about NST for what you see this evening. The survey that you received, each group surveys all of the staff within their body earlier in the year. And so that survey that I believe the survey you're referring to
Yes.
had to do with the 80% in support of a full percentage increase instead of it being split between a flat increase and a percentage increase. That was sent to, and because this question was asked last time, that survey was sent to all certified staff, and it was based on a hypothetical salary increase because we hadn't gotten to the point where we even suggested a percentage, but we gave them a couple different scenarios to be able to show them the difference between how the salary increase would be, how it would be reflected between different salary amounts. And 80% of the respondents did support having a full percentage increase as opposed to having their salary increase split.
Okay.
Can I provide a little bit more context? So I reached out to DVEA and I asked for the number of people who submitted results, and so the number I was told was 58% of all certified staff replied back.
Okay, so I just want to clear this up. So when you spoke to
DVEA,
they told you that 58% of all certified staff responded or
responded to the survey.
or 58%. Okay, so 58% of all certified staff actually responded.
Correct.
Okay.
And then I had a follow-up question and I haven't heard back I wanted to better understand the number of service years that the respondents had. So because I know that, one of my concerns, and I think that Mrs. O'Brien echoed it very well at the last board meeting, was if you've been teaching longer, you would make a higher percentage. You make more money. And so with a flat 5% increase, you're getting a higher raise. However, nationally and in our district as well, we have a retention problem and we have a hard time keeping new teachers and teachers that have, I think you said 9 years and under. Is that correct last time? I know you gave us a figure that I thought it was 9 years and under, but maybe I'm making that up. But was it
national? I'm sorry. A clarification on the question.
You had shared information with us. Mrs. O'Brien had asked you a question at the last meeting and to see where we lose our teachers at. So, where we see them not renewing their contracts. And I thought you had said it was the highest was for teachers who had 9 years or less. But maybe I'm making that.
I think what we had shared in what I recall the question was specific to special education. At the time, and the national trend is around 5 years of experience is when they might leave the profession.
Okay.
But that did cause us to begin to look at our own data. And what we see in our district, and this will be something we will share with you once we have it all together, the story might change, but we do see that we lose in all experience groups.
Okay. So I've talked to a couple of teachers over the last 2 weeks, and I've heard a lot of stories about history and about steps and the 500 Club, and so I'm trying to better understand how we have gotten to where we are, so I know how to make the best decision moving forward. What I don't want to do, obviously, I want to pay our teachers as much as we possibly can, and I wish we had more money to be able to pay them. What I don't want to do is I don't want to continue to put a Band-Aid over the problem of pay to where we're able to pay them more, but we still have issues and compression in our teacher salaries, to where we have teachers that are making more than administrators, and we have new teachers who feel like they're just barely getting by, and they're the ones who are leaving. So that in turn, the district is spending more money because we're having to continuously go out and find new teachers to fill rather than being able to retain our teachers. So those are some of my my concerns with just having a flat percentage increase rather than a flat dollar amount, to try and differentiate between those. I don't want to say salary schedules because that might not be the correct term, but I think.
So, Mrs. Ordway, if I could jump into Mrs. Reed's point.
Sure, I didn't know if Jim wanted you want to wait until. Okay, go ahead.
Sure. It's kind of hard because I don't see you guys, so.
No, Ms. Frank, go ahead, because I think Jim's formulating his thoughts.
Oh, okay. Just to Mrs. Reed's point, if you're looking at the percentage increase versus the percentage plus a flat dollar amount, and how just to consider that you have veteran teachers in the district who stuck with the district during some very, very lean years. And when not only did they not get pay raises, they got pay cuts. So I think perhaps the thinking here is to sort of equalize those teachers or help move them forward a little bit, because if you were there during those years when you took pay cuts and you stayed with the district and didn't leave, there should be some reward for that as well. And of course, we want to pay our beginning teachers also as much as possible, but there are people who are making considerably less than teachers who hired in at a different point in time, for example. So part of where your pay is, if it's based on a percentage increase, is really dependent on when you hired in and what the economy was during those years. And I know I'm an example of that. During the time I was in Deer Valley, I got pay cuts, and so I got up at one point to $41,000 and went backwards. And by the time I left, 5 years later, I was back up to $41,000. So I kind of just for 5 years got no increase at all, if that makes sense. So I think that percentage increase, which maybe skews a little bit more towards those veteran teachers, those would be the teachers who stayed with the district through some pretty lean years. So that's just a different perspective.
No, I appreciate that, and I realize that too. And I've been having a lot of those conversations with veteran teachers to better understand some of their stories and what all of their processes are. And I know that it had to do with the recession, and I understand that. I haven't made up my mind either way. I'm just trying to look at both sides of the situation and ask questions and get more information.
Yes, Ms. Tweedy.
So I have three things. I'll try quick though. So the first thing, and I wanted clarification from Mr. Miglarino. And you could put this in a board update, but one of the things you'd brought up is on the Auditor General's report, our average teacher pay was lower. So that would reflect or not the beginning teacher, it would reflect the mid-years of service. If you're adding the high and the low and you're taking a midpoint, it should. So what I'm saying is if the average teacher salary would be what the average teacher makes, that wouldn't be what the beginning teacher makes.
President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, yes, it's the average. So it's the average of all of them. So
That's
it
what
has
I'm
nothing-
saying. So it would represent somebody probably more in the middle of their career about it on pay, the middle salary amount. I mean, we could look at our median and compare our median to another district if we just took the middle number. But I'm going to say that the median would be close to the mean and the average would reflect a middle, not a beginning teacher salary.
That's depending whether you have the experience is an average number. That's the difference.
Our experience index tends to be higher. I know we've declined in recent years, so our average teacher would not be a new teacher.
Correct.
So
But you're-
I don't know how we compare on beginning teacher salary, but that definitely says we're underpaying our middle.
I think you could extrapolate that in total. The average that we're paying our teachers is less than everybody else.
Okay, so when you look at measures of central tendency, it would be the middle, teachers falling in the mid-range of experience would be making the middle. We don't hire somebody in and they're making more than teachers that have 10 years experience, and they're not making less than, say, somebody that's at the end of their career. So an average teacher salary would probably fall towards the middle of a teacher experience index. I mean, I know if we have outliers, it may be different than the median, but I'm saying this would not reflect mathematically a new teacher's salary where we have the problem on pay. Most likely, we could have a problem at all levels, so that when you average them together, it's a problem.
I
But
think
we would have to know then as our beginning teacher salary less than other districts. So if you could send us information on that.
I believe we're compiling information about starting teacher salary, but in order to make, I think, the conclusion that you're making, you would need to know the range. You would need to know the starting salary and the top salary to be able to make the conclusion. I think you're.
Well, you could pull the median and is less than other districts, but what I'm saying is if we're averaging in the outliers at both ends and dividing it by the total number of teachers to get that number, all of that data compiled together would mean we're underpaying people in other ranges.
Yeah, the median information.
Especially if we were able to pull the other districts, even if we were underpaying our beginning teachers, that would be less of a difference than other. I mean, we can compare the beginning teacher salaries, but that's obviously not going to add to it and skew it as much as, I mean, we'd have to have a real outlier, and we wouldn't probably have real outliers at the low end because we have a starting teacher salary that a lot of people are making.
Yeah, I would say that you're not going to have an outlier at the bottom because we have a starting point, right? And that starting point is something that is compared when we're doing recruiting and stuff. So it's constantly looked at. I think where we don't have any, first of all, median salaries are not published anywhere. The average is in the Auditor General report, and so they calculate that for us. We don't have that data. We would have to rely on people self-reporting that, but we don't have the top, and there is no top in our program. There is no cap as to what you can earn as a teacher. So you can have outliers at the top. That's why I said I think you need the range. You know what the bottom's going to be. Nobody's going to make less than $40,250 as a full FTE teacher this year.
And all first-year teachers, so we wouldn't have an outlier at the bottom.
Correct.
But we obviously don't have enough outliers at the top to pull our average up to skew it positively because we're still below everyone. So I'm thinking we're underpaying people in the middle a lot.
We can get to, we are collecting data around that. But again, I think Jim's point is the comparison data is not good. It's very 30,000 feet. So the only place we get help is we pick up the phone and say, Darsar, what are you doing? PV, what are you doing? And how they categorize it, how they display it, how they give it to us is totally voluntary. So unfortunately, the only places we can go are like the Auditor General's report. So it makes it a little difficult to do. What you have to do is take many pieces of data and draw a story. like classroom size, like starting teacher, like medium, like average, etc. And you put all those pieces together, and then you make.
But if the
makes
number was skewed positively, we would have a teacher salary.
correct.
So I mean, that's not really an argument we can make here, even though we don't have a top salary.
Right. But
If we do, then we're underpaying everybody even worse.
Miss Reed's point, though, is not that. Miss Reed's point is when you do percentages, the top accelerates faster than the lower. That's her point. And at a flat, it's distributed evenly, is her point. That's what she's trying to say.
Well, we're in education, so I think that might cover a whole group of people. Ms. O'Brien, did you have something?
Usually, when this topic comes up, or in past years, one of the things that has been brought up is that our benefits in our district tend to be better than in other districts. We haven't talked about that. I mean, I know we approve benefits, but we haven't talked about comparison to other districts. Do we know or believe that to still be true, Mr. Miglorino?
President Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, yes, we do compare that as part of the annual financial report. Also, the benefit committee does look at comparable data as they're developing their recommendation. That's already been approved by the board for next year. So very few changes. Just a short plug for those that may be watching. We are in open enrollment through May 8th.
Right.
So we're trying to encourage people.
If you call now,
Yeah, if you call now.
you get a set of Gunsu knives or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
We don't no promises. We don't want any sharp objects to get people get hurt and then they have more medical bills. But so the benefit committee does look at that, and we do continue to compare not only the salaries but the combination of the value or the cost
Yes.
of the salaries
Mhm.
and the benefits when we make the comparison with the annual financial report that that Ms. Mock does in October. So we continue to look at that, and that continues to evidence that. We have a much more expensive or richer plan than what other districts provide. And that's by choice, right? I mean, so the benefit committee knows this information, the NST group knows this information, and it's a concerted effort to continue it in that manner. So it's not as if they don't know; it's that they prefer it that way.
And I appreciate that that additional information. Is that because we have surveyed our employees and it's what our employees prefer, or is that based on what those committee members or district administration, or where does that preference come from? That's probably a better way to ask that question.
That is a very good question. And so each employee group surveys their constituency, and not just those that are members of their group, but their entire constituency that they represent. And then they bring that information back to either the benefit committee or sometimes referred to as the insurance committee. But I think benefit committee is probably more appropriately named. And it also is part of the survey that the NST leadership does for their individual respective groups. And it comes back very high on the survey results that they'd like the benefits to remain in place and to not offset any other salary implications. Because there have been years, certainly during the housing recession shortly after 2008, where we weren't able to give salary increases and benefit costs were continuing to rise. So for many people, the net impact was an expense for them, their household income.
Right, and I do recall that. So as a notation for maybe next year, when we start talking about benefits again, I'd love to see the governing board have the access on the information regarding those surveys, because I think like Mrs. Reed was asking about this current survey, how many people are responding is an important thing to know. If it's a small number who are making that decision for the majority, I think that's worth knowing. I hope the committee is looking at that when they assess it. But for future, that would be awesome. And then my last thing on this topic would related to budget-wise, Mr. Miglorino, if you could provide in the Friday update and I believe it's Prop 123, when that was passed, there's some trigger language about what occurs to education money from the state when the education budget, and if I'm quoting the wrong prop, I apologize. I think it's 123, but related to if we exceed 49% of the state budget, then some dollars decrease. I thought it was when we passed Prop 123, the state trust land dollars.
There's a. I'm not 100% sure. It's something I probably have to get back. I went back to this revenue slide here, and so there is a Prop 123 change. So Prop 123, I think what we do need to be cognizant of is it's only in place for 10 years. So it's a 10-year funding plan, and this year marks year 5. The current year that we're in.
Right.
Next year is year 6, so FY26 is year 6, and there was some additional funding. It's sometimes characterized as the $50 million share of Prop 123. So it was $50 million for the first 5 years. It ratchets up to $75 million for the final 5 years, and so that is just under $725,000 of an increase that's in the revenue projection that we have here. There is a constitutional budget limit that we have to be cognizant of that has to be calculated each year. So I don't know if that's a provision that might be in consideration because it's an aggregate amount that a funding that we have that's calculated annually. So if there are additional increases, it has to. If it's not under the constitutional limit, then it has to be overwritten by the legislature. So that could be something that we need to be concerned about. And then certainly not knowing how long the economic recovery is going to be could change the revenue forecast that we have as a district moving forward.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, I've got with the survey that DVEA or any of the associations send out, are you able to get the actual information where it says it was, where we know it was, if it's DVEA, that all those that are under that umbrella, it has been sent to, and then how many really, how many have responded?
President Orbit, yes, they do share that information. They give us the raw results of their survey, mostly done in some sort of electronic tool, and it has the number of survey results. And I don't know what other security measures are built into whatever tool they use. So, can it only be taken once? Those types of things.
Yeah, that part I wasn't so concerned about. It's just specifically, I guess, with DVA is to make sure that it has gone out to all certified, and we haven't forgotten the counselors, the speech therapists, that whole group that sometimes is overlooked.
We've had this conversation over a course of many years.
Yes.
I don't have evidence to be able to share with you, but we have been given reason to believe that, yes, they are reaching out to their collective group. We even have, and thanks to Ms. Moffitt and her team, we have an employee matrix that we post on the portal so that every position that we have knows who they
belong to,
what group they are assigned to, who represents them.
Okay.
And so we use that to share with the groups to be able to say, here are the people that you're supposed to be communicating with. And also for those people that may be members of another group to know who they should be talking to as their representative.
Right. Just want to make sure we've got everybody covered. Yes, ma'am.
So, and I had one more, just a comment. This is just my opinion. No, it's not going, you're not going to still be showing 900,000 negative when you bring this in front of us for a vote, because I would not approve that. I'll just be transparent right here.
Well, this is good information for us to have. No, and again, we are just trying to be consistent with how we're presenting the information because we don't have the May budget revision. So any number I would put in here would be a guess because we're still there's still so many unknowns, and there will probably be on May 12th as we sit here with the numbers, but there will be an actual document that we'll be asking you to approve as the May budget revision for this fiscal year, and it's going to have more than $1 million increase in the carry forward because we're up in students. So mostly that is an increase in students. We're also with Dr. Galligan and her staff, we're developing some summer school programs that part of the bill that was approved as due to the skinny budget is additional funding for summer school program opportunities. And so some of those are going to take place in June, some of those are going to take place in July. So it'll affect this year's budget, and it'll also potentially affect next year's budget. So there are a bunch of things that are going to add to the projected carry forward. We will not be bringing back a deficit budget for you to consider. It will have a positive number to it.
Isn't that thoughtful? All right, shall we move on to our next preview? Yes.
That'd be Mrs. Mock.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Finch, and anyone still watching online. This is going to be a little bit unusual, I think, for you. We typically do not bring the facility rental fee schedule as a preview item. It comes straight as an item for approval. However, that's because for about the past decade, there have not been any major changes to the schedule. And so we have more changes being brought to you tonight than probably what any of you have seen in your tenure. Part of that's because we did some comparisons with other school districts. And what we found was that for some of our fee schedules, we've got 3 different classes to the fee schedule, Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. Class 3 being the highest, we were either below the average or the lowest of all the districts with whom we compared ourselves. And so some of those, okay, maybe I do need the other one. Yeah, might have some bad batteries. Thanks, Gary. Okay. So, for example, class 3 rental for a classroom. We are currently charging $20 per hour, and we're proposing $24 per hour for the rental. With the districts whom we studied, and when I say we, I don't mean me at all. I mean Tina Robinson. She gets a lot of credit for this. She is our facility rental specialist. She's amazing. She helps organize and facilitate all the facility rentals for all of our campuses and does a super job and is continually meeting with other districts across the state and facilitating those meetings as well. So what she learned in some of those meetings and comparisons is that while we charge $20 for our classroom for our Class 3 rentals, other districts, the highest charges $46 an hour for a classroom rental, and the average is $33. So we fall far below both of those, and we thought maybe it was time for a little bit of an increase. We certainly don't want to go from $20 to $33 an hour in 1 year. That's not fair to our renters. That's a huge change, and I think it would make a huge difference to them and their ability to run their programs. So what we're looking at is just stair-stepping and continuing to look at these on an annual basis instead of bringing them back at the current amount after year. Another example we have here is just classroom, a specialty classroom, which includes weight rooms, anything that's not a standard classroom. There are others on the list, and we'll take a look at that here on one of the next slides. We rent ours out for $25 an hour currently. We're proposing an increase to $30 an hour. On the high side, $81 an hour is being charged by one school district, and the average is $46 an hour. So you can see even with these increases, we are trying to stay either at the average or still below the average. But certainly we believe and we know our facilities are top notch, and we should maybe get a little bit more of what we're renting out. So other districts as well, we just wanted to note that other districts may continue to raise their facility rental fees. So even if we take this in a 3-year plan to get closer to the average we have now, the average will continually. So here are some examples. Classroom. For Class 1 renters, just remember there is no charge. Those are identified in its governing board policy KF, and the fee schedule is specifically in Exhibit A. We don't typically bring exhibits to the board for approval, but because this is a fee schedule, it does need your approval. You can notice here the media center and library. For the class threes, we're at $40. That is already at the average. So when we took a look at those, we're not blanketly just asking for an increase for every type of facility rental that we have. If we're already at the average or have a comparable rate, we're going to recommend that it stay as it is. Another slight change is that we're just rearranging this grid. If you've seen this before, it was a little bit different. Tina received some feedback from the renters that this would be easier for them. They actually don't use the KFEA exhibit. They like the grid better, and I can see why. It's a lot easier to read. So we've arranged it by the inside rooms, which you see here. And then we have the outside rooms. For many of those, we are already comparable, so we have fewer recommended increases. Another factor are utilities. I think, again, for about a decade, from 2009 to 2018-19, we did not have an increase in utilities, despite many multiple increases by APS and other utility agencies. We did see a slight increase in 18-19, where we raised the utility fee that we are charging our renters, but we did not change it in 19-20, except for mini auditoriums and media centers. But we are expecting another APS rate increase in 2021. And Mr. Miglierino worked with, I believe, John Burnell in our utilities management program to determine that a 10% rate across the board for any of our rental areas that require utilities be applied. Another item that had not been changed, certainly in my tenure or Mrs. Robinson's tenure, when it comes to facility rentals, were the employee amounts. We had been charging our renters $27 per employee when needed for custodial or technology. Those positions could be filled by classified or certified staff. With changes that are being recommended to the certified manual, language changes that are being recommended, the teacher extra duty pay hourly rate is recommended being changed from $16 to $25 an hour. And so that $27 an hour that we were charging our renters wouldn't even cover teacher salary once you add on the matching benefits. So after a decade, we did believe it was time to increase the custodial and technology fee, and we're requesting an increase from $27 to $35 an hour. And with that, I will take any questions.
Yes, Mrs. Reed.
I have a question in regards to our high school campuses when they are rented out, like so specifically our auditoriums. I know that we have a lot of churches and organizations who rent those out for their services. And in speaking to a high school principal, they shared that their auditorium amenities, their chairs, their lights, and the paint on the stage, things like that, they tend to run through a lot quicker because the auditorium's continuously rented out. So when we rent those out, how do we accommodate all of the wear and tear for those types of things? I mean, is that
lights and all that?
Yeah, because I mean, I know that we're on a schedule for refurbishments for all of our schools, but is there a separate schedule that takes that into consideration, or is there money that's held from the rentals that then goes back to do all those, fix whatever needs to be fixed?
Mrs. Reed, I can start to answer that question, and it looks like Dr. Finch and Mr. Miglierino are ready to add on. But yes, first with the facility rental, we take and pay any of the staff that are needed. And then with the facility rental fee itself, 50% of that goes directly back to the school. The intent of that money is to replace the light bulbs, some of the more frequent supplies that are then being used, some of the easy wear and tear that comes from those renters being on campus. The great thing about the facility rental fees is that they are relatively I can't think of the right word. They can be used on anything that's campus appropriate, but we ask that the school first use it on any of those items that receive the wear and tear from the renters being there. So some of that onus does go on the schools for that. We don't necessarily have, because of budget decreases to capital specifically in district additional assistance in the past, After 2008 loss of the capital override, we've not been able to put as much into capital, such as auditorium seating or even the curtains and the scrims that go on the auditorium. Those items have not been replaced necessarily on a schedule for those specific reasons. We're looking at, as we build the new budgets and looking at the restoration of district additional assistance, making sure that we're keeping enough in capital so that we can put more capital as well back to the schools and start to pick up some of those replacements that we've lost over the past decade as well.
President Ordway, Ms. Reed, if I could just add, yes, our Director of Facilities, Mr. Jeff Long, actually visits every school each year, and we actually make an assessment. So, yes, we do have a schedule of when we do what we refer to as building renewal projects, but that is evaluated annually in person, and we make a determination as to whether or not something needs to be moved from that schedule, either up or delayed in some cases. And where we do have high utilization, it is a trade-off, right? I mean, they are. We like to consider them the community's property, right? Community schools, but at the same time, not everybody respects the property as much as we would like them to when you have large groups and it does become somewhat of a challenge to make sure that we have the appropriate personnel to be able to unlock for them, and so it's an added burden to the schools, but they do receive some additional funds for that effort, and we try and make sure that during those annual evaluations we're looking at when a schedule doesn't work because something has been altered by that. And many times that doesn't necessarily always mean that it's based on facility rental. It could be based on environmental factors. You know, a campus that's close to a wash and you know gets more dust and debris than a campus that might be completely developed all the way around it. Things of that nature.
The third leg I'll add is bonds. What we do as we project into the future, we realize that this place here needs renovation before this one. And Mr. Merguino has a team that evaluates that as it goes, and then we put it, when we get to that stage, when it's beyond repair, for lack of a better word, where there's only so much duct tape that will work, then we go and remodel the whole thing to the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then we start over. And that's the life cycle of schools in general. That's how it works.
Anybody else? No. Okay. So what does that take us to? I think we're going to books now, aren't we? We are our resource adoption. Maybe not books, huh?
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. This evening, I'll be sharing information about our traditional academy, ELA and math curricular resources. We had a team of DVUSD teachers, administrators, parents, and department leaders who answered the call to serve as committee members for this unique opportunity in Deer Valley. They reviewed, evaluated, and came to consensus on the curricular resources you're going to see here. I would like to give a shout out to Jennifer Louie and Kathy White. They both ran this particular adoption committee, and I very much appreciate the time and effort and knowledge that they brought to it. You can see that the members range from teachers, administrators, district folks, staff. I will say that this committee had so many people who wanted to be part of it. We didn't have to go begging. They knocked on our door. So we appreciate each one of them and their help with this adoption. The committee has been working for several months. They first came together to determine the most important criteria to include in their evaluation instrument for our traditional school. They then used the evaluation form as they reviewed materials from 6 different vendors and 15 different product lines. The top 2 vendors for ELA and the top 2 vendors for math were selected and invited to conduct a live presentation to the committee members. The 60-day public review period commenced on February 7th, and then after spring break, the materials were available for public review digitally via links on our district website. The committee met virtually on April 13th to draft a recommendation, drawing upon the evaluation of the material samples, vendor presentations, and public input. In all of the committee's work, they were mindful of selecting products that would best support a traditional approach to learning. They were in alignment with the Arizona state standards, were supportive of parental involvement, and provided guidance for teachers on learning activities that required a more teacher-directed approach, yet flexible enough to allow for student acceleration. I am pleased to share with you that the committee's recommendations for traditional English language arts and mathematics curricular resources you see right here. For math, the committee's easily reached consensus on the recommendation for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt's Saxon Math series. The Saxon Math program is rigorous and does include spiral review learning opportunities. It has a more traditional feel as it relies upon direct instruction, moving to guided practice, and building to independent learning. Concepts are introduced through algorithmic learning, followed by conceptual understanding. There are ways to include parental involvement through home practice exercises. Additionally, this product is very popular among traditional schools in our area and across the nation. The recommendation for English language arts curricular resource products took a bit more discussion among the committee since not one singular product seemed to meet the needs of all of the grade levels K-6. The team feels that a combination of 3 products will best suit both student learning and a traditional approach. The committee is recommending Spalding Reading and Writing for grades K2, Spalding Foundational Reading and Phonics Components for grade 3, with McGraw-Hill's Open Court for Literature and Reading Comprehension, and McGraw-Hill's Open Court Reading for grades 4 and 5, and finally McGraw-Hill's Study Sync for grade 6, and you can see that here. Spalding clearly centers reading instruction around building a strong base of foundational reading skills in phonics. Writing and spelling are incorporated. A library of leveled readers is included. The approach is highly traditional, including a heavy reliance on direct instruction and rote learning with a traditional style of supplemental materials. Like Saxon Math, it is a signature piece and product for many traditional schools. Open Court Reading for grades 3-5 includes excellent literature pieces that are highly appropriate for these grades. The materials include opportunities for spiral review and guidance for intervention. The materials are flexible enough to allow teachers to adapt the resources to increase the rigor necessary for an accelerated school. The parental involvement component of traditional schooling is aided by the one-page home connection pages to be shared with parents each week. The committee was unanimous from the start on recommending the Study Sync program for grade 6. It is a rigorous program which requires students to apply higher level thinking skills throughout. It is also a very engaging program with an enticing digital platform, high interest literary and informational text, and ways to build in differentiation to meet student needs and interests. If the governing board approves, we will go forward with HMH Saxon for K6, Spalding for K2, Open Court, and then Study Sync. And we are proposing 3 teachers at each grade level, K6. And the cost for that, including shipping and tax, would be just over $261,000. We will bring this recommendation back to the governing board meeting in May, the first one, for action. In the meantime, if there is any information you would like us to provide in an update, please let us know. Thank you.
Ms. Tweedy has a question for you.
I would like to know in an update how many students are currently enrolled. Like, do we think we're going to have 3 classrooms at each grade level?
Ms. Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, we can certainly get that for you right now as it stands.
Oh,
We know that we'll have parents who enroll all the way up through the first day of school. We also thought, did a little future thinking. So we did want to go forward with 3 teachers at each grade level because we believe within the next 3 years, regardless of what we start out next year, that school will be full. But we'll get that to you in an update.
Mr. Reed?
I was just curious how many of the committee members are going to be teachers at the traditional academy or be staff members?
I don't have that information right in front of me. We can certainly get that to you. I will say that all of the administrative interest of those principals who are interested in that school participated. Of course, Miss Vivian Hunt was selected. But we'll get a list of the teachers that participated and if they are going to be at the traditional school.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
President Ordway, I could add to Ms. Tweedy's question. Ms. Tweedy, the current number that Principal Hunt relayed to me this week is 241 students for the traditional academy. And so that number will continue to grow. She is reporting that the interest to her continues to grow quite a bit in the past week and a half, as that is when we have really resumed our communications to the community, with Monica sending out new advertisements to both interested families that have already contacted us and then just to the general community as well.
So, does it cost extra if you order what you need and then you order more as it grows? Or, I mean, I just want to make sure we're not going to end up with paying for a bunch of stuff that's not in classroom. Yeah.
Ms. Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, we completely understand. We've looked at the trajectory, though, of our fellow districts who have had traditional schools either long time or have started out within the last 2 years. And the growth at those particular schools is exponential after that first year.
Ms. Ordway, I have one more question.
Yes.
Were there any community comments that you received regarding curriculum?
We did have a comment that was in support of Saxon. Thank you.
Ms. Frank, do you have any questions? Thank you.
No questions, thank you.
Does Mrs. O'Brien have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, so we will go to our high school health curriculum.
This evening, we will present a recommendation for high school health curriculum resources for adoption and the implementation to begin next school year, 2020-21. Again, a team of teachers, administrators, parents, and department leaders answered the call to serve on this committee as well, to review, evaluate, and come to consensus on a curricular resource. You can see that this is our team. They were very thoughtful and discerning as they looked at resources that they haven't had new resources for so many years. We're thankful for their time that they volunteered, their input and thinking. And I would like to give a shout out to Tara Daly, who is a Mountain Ridge health teacher, and she co-ran this adoption with Kathy White. So the two of them led this committee, and I just appreciate both of them very much. The committee initially met to determine the most important aspects that a new health resource should provide. They reviewed the materials provided by the 3 publishers and attended the vendor presentations of the materials. The 60-day public review period began on February 14th with both hard copy and virtual access, and then virtual only access after spring break. The committee met virtually on April 15th to draft a recommendation for the curricular resources you see here. Our current adopted resource for high school health courses was adopted in 2004, 15 years ago, over 15 years ago. The committee was highly interested in resources that were as up to date as possible after struggling with such outdated resources for so long. For instance, the committee was looking for a resource that addressed such things as hands-on CPR and vaping. Other key elements they were looking for included an engaging digital platform that integrates with Canvas, a robust set of teacher resources, and videos. I'm pleased to share with you that the committee's recommendation for a new high school curriculum resource is Goodhart Wilcox's Essential Health 2021. We are pleased to be given access to review the latest version of this resource. The Goodhart Wilcox Essential, try saying that 3 times, Health Resource was selected for recommendation for many reasons. The content was the most up-to-date of all the publishers. It includes discussions of e-cigarettes and vaping, substance abuse in the context of changing laws, cyberbullying, and other online safety issues. There are extensive instructor resources, including videos, lesson plans, worksheets, and assessments. The resources are editable, allowing teachers to customize learning activities to fit student needs and course pacing. The projected costs were based upon 15 teachers across our high schools and 1,500 students per year, with 600 hard copy textbooks for 2 to 3 class sets at each high school. The estimated total cost for 5 years of digital access will be $173,221. The teachers felt very strongly that they still wanted those class sets because they realized their current adoption was 16 years old, and if they wouldn't have had the hard copy textbooks that they have had, we didn't have the digital licenses for that full time. So they were a little gun shy about not having some kind of a hard textbook, but they very much wanted the digital access that would blend with our Canvas course. We will bring this recommendation back to you in the first May board meeting for action. Again, in the meantime, if there are any questions or any information we can give to you, please let us know.
I have one question right now. I know that the increase of kids taking high school health online, that there is an increase. I just don't know how much it's cut into class size for that portion of taking health in high school.
President Ordway, we know that our incoming 9th grade students like to pair up PE and that health requirement. However, the overall number is not, we have 15 teachers with multiple sections.
Okay, I
I
just
can
wanted,
get that
yeah.
information for you, though.
Yeah, that would be great because I don't know, it would be nice to have to see if there actually are so many of them taking their PE online. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How many parents were part of the adoption committee? And are they just parents, not teachers too? Because I hear the community, I always hear a lot of concerns about what we're going to teach in health. So just making sure we had parent voice and that they saw the material.
Carmen Johnston was our parent, and I do not believe that they were a teacher parent, but I will follow up with a update for you.
What days was this on review in the district office, and how was it communicated so that the community could look at the materials?
It was communicated on our website. It was communicated through all of our social media that we have available to us, Twitter and Facebook.
What were the dates that it was on display? Like, was it during COVID, like where people wouldn't have come?
So our display was February, I believe it was February 14th. Let me go back to my notes.
Yeah, you said February 14th.
Yeah, I think it was Valentine's Day, right?
It was right around that time.
Is it 60
We began
days?
on February 14th in both hard copy and with virtual access for anyone that was interested. That information, again, was on our website as well as sent out in social media.
Is it
Okay.
for 60 days?
60 days.
60
Yes.
It's not any different than the
No.
anything else, right?
I'm just asking because I just know when I go to meetings, health education, and actually, and I've messaged, but like most of the community members I've talked to actually want to have opt in on some of this stuff. And so I know it's just a big deal. I just want to make sure I'm asking the questions. And
Yes, Mrs. O'Brien.
Miss Tweedy, the parent that was noted up there was not a teacher. Also.
Is it possible for us as governing board members to have virtual access to the recommendation this next week?
Absolutely. We also have materials right out here. So if you would like to take a book with you, you are welcome to, and then we'll get virtual access for you.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm sorry, is Carmen Johnson an employee though? Because I'm hearing she's an employee.
Miss White just texted me and said that the parent was not an employee, but I'll follow up with you on
Oh,
that.
okay, because I just got a text. She's not a teacher, but she's an employee.
She's not a current teacher.
Maybe we just hired her.
Wow, Ms.
5
Reed,
minutes
go
ago.
ahead.
Were there any community
Dr.
comments
Fink.
that were submitted?
We had a community comment that was negative for the Pearson product. We did not go with that product. Parent.
And sorry, Mrs. Ordway.
Do you have anything?
I have an additional question.
Yes, please.
When we do curriculum adoption, Dr. Galligan, you said we make the notification that materials are available for review on our website and we send it out through social media.
Yes.
Do we ever include that in an email out to our parents?
We have not in the past. The information is posted in those two avenues.
Right.
We can certainly send an email out if the board would like us to do that moving forward. Our next adoption will be the 3-6 science adoption in the fall, and we can certainly send that information out to our 3-6 parents.
Okay. Or maybe our two sick, parents who are coming up. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to think of all the years I was a parent. I realize we've come a long way since my kids graduated in our social media and our outreach to folks. But if that might be something that Cabinet would talk about and think about if that would be advantageous to us as a district to get maybe a little bit more involvement.
District website, on the school website. Could even flash it on a marquee. Well,
Absolutely.
You could. Thank you. I thank you for considering that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, I think we are moving to our discussion. And I think that we're going to discuss something with Mrs. O'Brien.
Well, the last item, almost last item, is the to consider the proposed Arizona School Board Association's 2021 political agenda. That's recommended by the legislative committee. So this is the discussion in lieu of a vote next time. Last year, or as part of, let me start back. As part of our board book, the current year's agenda is posted. Last year, the 5 recommendations that we voted on and sent forth as our priorities were to be financially prepared to continue funding education during the next economic downturn, additional funding for nationally competitive certified and classified salaries, funding for additional counselors and school resource officers, establish financial and academic transparency for all institutions that accept public funds, and to fully fund all-day kindergarten. We are allowed to have a top 5 with 2 additional ones if we would like. So if anyone has additional recommendations, or we can just vote in what we voted last year. When I reviewed the agenda, one of the things that popped up this year, given what we're going through right now, is to provide a stable, dedicated revenue source, less reliant on the general fund or annual legislative appropriation, given that we are probably going to be going into another economic downturn. That kind of jumped out at me this time. And then one of the other things, and I'm not sure that's necessarily for the ASBA legislative agenda, but I'm going to throw it out there just for to plant a seed, I guess, that given where we are in these unprecedented times, I think it opens the door for us to start having conversations about how can public education be different and better going forward. I don't know if we want to have that discussion as a board, if we want Arizona School Boards Association to look at it as well. I know it's something that we're talking about at West Ed about how, you know, this is COVID-19 is a major disruptor to education and gives us the opportunity to, I think, stop and look and see maybe how we can make education better for our students. I don't have any major revelations right now at this time, but there's a lot of experts in this room that have been doing this for a long time. So I like I said, I throw that out there as a seed to plant, and I would love nothing more. I mean, DVUSD is extraordinary in a lot of ways, and would love for us to continue to be be a leader and maybe where we go in the future for education and what that looks like and how we provide for all of our kids in a different, better way going forward. So those are my thoughts. And
Well, I agree that this is transformational. This can be that tipping point where we change that thing that we've been complaining about. Education has been the same thing for 200 years. I mean, this is our opportunity, and certainly voice through ASBA would be a powerful place to start talking about the transformation, especially with the dedicated source of funding that isn't reliant on the, well, it would have to be reliant to an extent. So, what, in addition to the things that we voted on, how would you phrase that? Or have you worked on that yet?
I haven't worked on how that might sound. I'm open to suggestions if anybody has any, but I can work on some language and provide it to Dr. Finch.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Does anyone else have anything they want to discuss it?
Well, I just had it would be great to hear, I guess, kind of the behind the scenes thought process and what our district has learned through the COVID-19 process a little bit more in depth, where, and maybe to have that discussion to see, what were some of the hurdles that we identified as having, how did we overcome them, how have things transitioned, so that if we do decide to make a recommendation to ASBA, that we have more data and information behind us.
Oh, absolutely.
And where we want to go, what's the next step? Because I think that those conversations are important to have, and having 4 students myself, watching each of them be able to grow into the type of learner that they truly are, rather than the type of learner that their classroom environment needs them to be, has been very eye-opening. So to see their strengths and weaknesses given free reign, I guess, without any encumbrances. So I think that it'd be interesting to find from other parents too, how they're what they've noticed about their students through this, and how they learn. Because I think that given all of the access to information and technology and different learning environments, I think that the type of learners we might expand from, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. I mean, there might be some different modalities that arise out of this.
So I think that we're still in it. So we're not really going to have so much data and information, but I think in general there are some things that you would be able to identify that we could then put forth as something that we want.
And even if it's not this year, maybe
Right.
maybe this is, we work on this as part of what we might recommend next year. But I would love, I mean, I just really do want to share that, so that maybe you all are thinking about it. Maybe you already were all thinking about it, given a plan A, plan B, and plan C, that how do we do this? So that would be awesome.
If I could give you a
No.
slight taste of it, we've been contacted by Mark Jorgenstead, the executive director for AASA. If our superintendent conference goes virtual, they want the Deer Valley team to present on what we learned, because we've been
Awesome.
connected with NEVIC and kind of learning from our peers. And because we have three things that kind of put us above everyone else, one is our technology infrastructure was a major player. Having the second is a student management system in place, operational, which was a major hurdle for those districts who didn't have that, and our teacher development. Those three main keys were the reason why Deer Valley was slow but became fast in the end and passed everyone else, because slow to go fast turned out to be the best strategy once we kind of figured out the structure of how we would deliver it. But without those three pieces, we would not be successful. So we're working on that as we speak. What it might look like.
Does anyone else want to add, or are we?
No, I think those agenda items are good.
Okay.
Okay, so what does that bring us to? Darn. Future meetings and adjournment.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And there's no one opposed, so we'll see you at, I didn't say the